Mr. Speaker, today we are debating an essential and very important motion dealing with the rice industry. Mr. Speaker, the rice industry, as we know, is not only a component of the economic framework of our country, but the rice industry is an industry that provides economic and social well-being to a number of persons in our population. In some regions, this economic activity accounts for more than 95% of the economic well-being of the people. It is therefore imperative on us as leaders to understand that rice cannot be isolated as private business. Rice is indeed an integral and important aspect of national life. And if, for a moment, we believe that we can ignore the woes of the rice farmers, if we for a moment believe that we can ignore the hardships of the rice farmers, if we for a moment believe that we can deny the rice farmers of much needed affordable benefits, affordable to the government, benefits and support that will sustain, secure and safeguard the livelihood of thousands of people across this country, then we are making a fundamental social and economic mistake. A fundamental social and economic mistake. Mr. Speaker, the negligence of the government, the incompetence of the government in dealing with the issue of rice, in understanding the seriousness of rice and its import to this country leaves much to be desired. We woke up a long time ago. That is why when we were in government, Mr. Speaker, we consistently gave benefits, we consistently provided support mechanism for the farmers and the rice industry. And we are not asking for anything more or anything less. All we are asking for, Mr. Speaker, is for those existing support that the PPP civic government gave to the rice farmers be restored. That is all that we are asking. We are not asking, Mr. Speaker, we are not asking, I will tell you in a moment what the support is. We are not asking for a moment, Mr. Speaker, for the government to implement the promise that they made to the rice farmers. They have to be held accountable for the promise they made and how they left the rice how they abandoned the rice farmers with that promise. That is something they have to explain. But what we are asking for is for the sustainability of the sector based on the framework and the policy that the PPP civic government left. That is all we are asking for. Mr. Speaker, rice, the total loan to the rice sector is $9 billion. Let us not for a moment believe, Mr. Speaker, that rice is isolated from the financial framework of this country. Rice plays a key role, an important role in the financial architecture of the country. $9 billion. $9 billion exposure in the banking sector. Can we understand what $9 billion of exposure in the banking sector means? Mr. Speaker, production at this moment is stymied by the inaction and ineffectiveness of government to address the issues facing the rice sector. Many businesses in rice-producing community has been affected with reduced demand. You have reduced sales in many of the communities. But today, we are not going to just raise these issues and leave it there. We are committed to the sustainable, continued growth of the rice sector. And we on this side of the House would like to propose the following. One, which we proposed a year ago. One, resume talks and negotiations with the government of Venezuela. Two, to remove all form of taxes and duties on fuel for the industry. Of course we did that. Of course we did that. To remove all taxes and duties. This is what I'm saying, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I just said this. If those who are tasked with pushing this industry forward does not have an understanding of what was done to help the industry, then where are we starting from? Where are we starting from? Mr. Speaker, we ask to remove all taxes and duties on inputs for the industry, including machinery, equipment, and spares. On this issue, Mr. Speaker, we ask for a transparent public tendering of fertilizer for this industry. And not the unilateral, non-transparent way in which a high officer sought to secure fertilizer from a campaign financier. Four, Mr. Speaker, work with financial institutions. Mr. Speaker, our fourth recommendation, work with financial institutions to refinance loans of farmers. Mr. Speaker, the government needs to sit down with the banks and to work out the refinancing of loans. Farmers are losing their assets. Mr. Speaker, our fifth recommendation, to suspend payment of land leases and D&I charges. Suspend payment on land leases and D&I charges. Mr. Speaker, six, we ask to delay supplementary provision in the National Assembly to provide financial support to farmers in order to aid the purchase of seed paddy and fertilizer. We did all of this. Seven, Mr. Speaker, we ask to immediately implement minimum export prices for rice and paddy. Eight, we ask to implement an aggressive marketing strategy that is not headed by the Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, to implement an aggressive marketing strategy in order to enhance current prices and secure new lucrative markets. Nine, Mr. Speaker, and very importantly, we ask for the immediate withdrawal and pronouncement by the government. The immediate withdrawal and the pronouncement by government that rice is not government business. We ask for the pronouncement. That rice is a private matter. We ask for the pronouncement that rice is a private matter to be withdrawn immediately. Mr. Speaker, these are only some of the additional recommendations that we wish to put forward to the government. And in so doing, Mr. Speaker, I conclude by saying to the rice farmer, of course, Mr. Speaker, guess what the government did? Instead of helping, they now have the 60% VAT on machinery, the tractor, and the combine now attracts 16% VAT. We ask that this 16% be immediately withdrawn. Mr. Speaker, and as an immediate support system for the people in the rice industry, in communities where more than 80% of the income depends on rice, we ask that the electricity subsidy and water subsidy be immediately extended to these communities. Immediately extended.
Mr. Speaker, the farmers of Region 2, Region 6, Region 3, and Region 5 demands that the APNU-AFC government must address the rice industry. Mr. Speaker, 80% of our people depends on rice directly and indirectly. For example, in Region 2, where I was born, if rice is not addressed, every other sector in Region 2 will feel the squeeze. Mr. Speaker, I have a message for the Honorable Agriculture Minister from the farmers of Guyana. Get your acts together, or else you will end up being a dismal failure as an agriculture minister. Let me advise you, honorable member, about the way forward. Mr. Speaker, the APNU-AFC government should send the minister to Venezuela to renegotiate the rice petrol deal. Now, our farmers want rice. Guyana needs rice. So stop killing rice, Honorable Agriculture Minister.
Let me deal, however, with the measures proposed in the motion. 1. To resume negotiation with the government of Guyana with the intention of selling rice and paddy to that country. Mr. Speaker, under the Petro-Carib arrangement, Guyana signed contracts with Venezuela for each consecutive year from 2009 to 2015 and honored all contracts. The Venezuela rice trade totaled 624,647 metric tons of paddy and 355,628 metric tons of white rice, valued at US dollars 594,918,265, which is 312 million approximately in paddy and 282 million in rice. During this period, the rice industry saw some positive transformations, farmers and millers gradually increasing their investments over the years. However, Mr. Speaker, it is a well-known fact that the contract with Venezuela was repudiated by Venezuela. Guyana's effort to resume shipments were not successful. We are all aware of what has happened to the price of oil and the serious economic problems Venezuela as a nation faces. It is inconceivable that deals that are comparable in volume and price of the past are achievable again. Indeed, we are informed that the current arrangement between Venezuela and Suriname, which is itself in jeopardy, is at a price way below the $760 US per ton received by Guyana. Mr. Speaker, the honourable member will agree with me. Guyana benefits with the reduction in oil prices. However, this is not the case for Venezuela. Professor Thomas, in his article, Guyana's Perspective, The Basic Contradictions of Petro-Carib, on March 22, 2016, in the Stabroek News, states, and I quote, Venezuela needs an oil price of 120 US to $140 per barrel to meet its obligations fully, including those of Petro-Carib. And given that the days of $100 per barrel of oil may be gone for decades, with current market prices at 30 to 40 US dollars a barrel, then it must be deduced that even if the government does resume negotiations with the government of Venezuela, it will be very difficult for Guyana to pursue the deal since they are limited. Additionally, there was no scenario analysis for the rapidly reduced oil prices as has been seen over the past 9 months, despite the abundance of our resources, unquote. 2, the immediate remove all forms of taxes and duties on fuel for the industry, and 3, to remove all taxes and duties on imports for the industry, including machinery, equipment, and spares. I will take these 2 together, if the Honourable doesn't mind. It may be possible to attempt this if one can relate the quantum of fuel used for field operations on a per acre basis. This is the kind of work that the field staff of the RPA should be doing, and I call upon the RPA to collaborate with officers of my ministry to present a proposal on how the removal of duties and taxes on fuel can be addressed without the hemorrhage of such fuel into the society at a great loss to the government's coffers. It is true that VAT is now being charged on imported machinery, equipment, and spares, unlike the earlier years. But this can be relooked at, and I will ensure that it is done so that recommendations, if considered feasible, can be made to the Ministry of Finance. 4, to commence discussion with all the commercial banks lending to the industry to review terms and conditions of loans taken into account the low prices farmers are getting in order to soften repayment conditions. Mr. Speaker, once in the past, government had intervened with the refinancing of defaulted farmers, where the taxes on interest earned by the commercial banks were waived, and farmers benefited from a lower interest rate. Mr. Speaker, there is much potential for this to benefit our farmers, since according to the Bank of Guyana, the commercial banks' loans and advances to the private paddy producers was not 9 billion, but 65.5 billion in 2015, while from January to March 2016, it was 17.22 million. This is an increase of 19% for the same period in March 2015. My ministry will commence discussions with the Ministry of Finance and commercial banks, as is suggested, to soften repayment conditions. We have no problem with that. 5, to suspend payments of land leases and drainage and irrigation charges. One may need to examine this in greater detail, Mr. Speaker. Robert Kiyosaki once said, "The best way to predict the future is to study the past." From the past, if you examine the Blackbush Polder and Tapakuma schemes, both are rich rice-producing areas where farmers were irresponsible in cattle rearing, cleaning and clearing of fields, and drainage to farmlands by not paying their D&I fees. This resulted in a deterioration of the schemes. Government intervened by accessing IDB loans to resuscitate these schemes. Mr. Speaker, everyone paid. Is this what the honourable member wants to happen again? 6, to lay supplementary provisions in the National Assembly to provide financial support to farmers in order to aid in the purchase of seed paddy and fertilizer. Mr. Speaker, government has in the past given favourable consideration for supplementary provisions for farmers. We are prepared to import fertilizers and make it available to farmers at the lowest possible price, as has been done in the past. 7, to immediately implement minimum export prices for rice and paddy. Mr. Speaker, when we look at our position in the world rice trade, our production is only 0.161% of world rice production. This means our position is the same as that of a single drop in our mighty Essequibo River. What this means is that we are not in a position to dictate terms on the world market, nor influence price nor production trends. We are at the behest of world market prices. We would have avoided this reality in the recent past with the very favorable prices we received from Venezuela under the Petrocarib arrangement, where they accepted rice as payment for oil. However, this arrangement has many challenges, and we are forced once more to wake up to the reality that is the world market. Mr. Speaker, we operate on open market conditions. We monitor the prices and set our contracts based on the world prices. However, how therefore can Guyana implement a system of minimum export prices for paddy and or rice? What happens when there are no buyers? Because there is cheaper rice available elsewhere. Mr. Speaker, given we are unable to compete on price alone, this presents the opportunity for producers to concentrate on growing and maintaining the quality of their product to gain premium prices in this space, or to produce the new aromatic varieties which fetch higher prices on the world market. 8, to implement an aggressive marketing strategy in order to enhance current prices and secure new lucrative markets. Mr. Speaker, the Rice Development Board has been doing this on a continuous basis. The Panama contract is a case in point, and negotiations are in train to secure a new market in Mexico. Mr. Speaker, I will not shy away from the fact that one of the main issues facing the industry is the challenging of marketing our rice at a price that is profitable to all stakeholders. The enormous increase in rice production now means we must market our rice into newer markets and be competitive with other producers of rice. 40 countries now buy Guyana's rice, allowing our export earnings from rice to grow to more than $240 million US. We must protect and extend the market by ensuring the highest quality rice is exported. In 2010, the Venezuelan market was 70% of local production. In 2014-2015, the Venezuelan market, which maintained its volume, was about 30% of our market. Hence, as we continue to seek high-priced preferential markets, we must gear our industry in such a manner that we can accept world market prices and still make a profit. We are the only country in the world that exports as much as 75% of the rice produced. Our currency in this model is one that is dependent heavily on marketing. This government is fully aware of the importance of this sector on the performance of the economy and the livelihood of our people. Mr. Speaker, it will be inconceivable if we continue to increase production and have nowhere to market our rice. As such, this government has placed much emphasis on marketing. Government is committed to provide support, but the industry must also take responsibility. 9, to withdraw its pronouncement that the rice industry crisis is a private matter and give support to the industry, especially the farmers. The rice industry is at present the most important agricultural industry in Guyana. Indeed, it is now ahead of sugar in terms of foreign exchange earnings. Rice is the largest user of agricultural land and absorbs and influences more of the working population than any other industry in Guyana. Mr. Speaker, this government recognizes the 7,300 farmers across the White Belt cultivating some 240,000 acres. Mr. Speaker, rice is our industry. We must stop the bickering and making statements and work together for the benefit of the farmers. I welcome the Rice Producers Association and the honorable members to come, sit down with my officers, and let us work on these measures in greater detail for the benefit of the farmers and to improve the state of the rice industry.
Without doubt, the rice industry is in serious crisis in this country. Mr. Speaker, when you look at this motion, there are only two options. Either you support the motion and stand with the rice farmers and ensure that you try to assist them, or you stand against the motion and you try to see the suffering continues. And I think my colleague over there are making funds, are making joy with the people who are feeding this nation, the people who are feeding our country. And we should ensure, Mr. Speaker, that when we come here, we must be serious, because these people are the people who are toiling day and night. These are the people whose economic lives, whose future depend on an industry that is not performing because of the incompetence of that government over there.
Mr. Speaker, the life and sacrifices that farmers have made over the years is not unknown and should not be trivialized by saying rice farmers have to be more responsible. I would like to ask, be more responsible and do what? The Honorable Minister of Agriculture came here and told us today that we will support, but the farmers must be more responsible, and I come to that later. More responsible and do what? That is almost insulting. It is blaming the victims in this case. The rice farmers are the victims of this terrible system, whether a world market or the inefficiency and incompetence of a government who does not understand rice. The farmers are the victims, and you're telling them to be more responsible and do what, I might ask. Because I have seen these farmers, men and women, over the years give up holidays, give up the beauty of a complexion that does not get tarnished by the harshness of weather, and give up the family time that people who don't have to work day and night on any given day, give up the ability to enjoy the things that the city has to offer over the years. So how much more responsible can these people be? What are we asking them to do, and how could we blame them in these circumstances?
The minister gave a very polished presentation. All the right language was used to convey the impression that the government is committed to address the issues in the rice industry. But the actions are absent to support that. Because why? Why would the Minister of Finance in the 2015 budget remove VAT exemption from agriculture equipment? 2016 budget. Why? Why would he remove VAT when otherwise the rice farmers for over 25 years, rice farmers were given tax-free for their equipment. This year, 2016, is the first time that they are paying some form of tax in the form of VAT.
Our chief whip wrote to the Honorable Minister seeking his intervention on behalf of the Leader of the Opposition, seeking his intervention to at least do some things to address the concerns of the farming community in Region 5. And so I was advised that no response, none. And like I said, the General Secretary of the Rice Producers wrote in June, wrote again in August, wrote in October, wrote again in March, wrote again in April, and sir, not even the courtesy of a response. And then we are told in this house that we are prepared to work with you. Come with a recommendation. Sir, if you don't even accept and acknowledge receipt of a proposal, how are we going to take it a step further? On the issue of fuel, the Honorable Minister of Agriculture said, well, give us a number. I could say we need 4.5 gallons of diesel per acre in normal circumstances. 4.5 gallons of diesel per acre in normal circumstances. I wrote the Rice Board asking for support for fuel in view of the advisory we were getting for El Nino.